All right. So what are we talking about tonight? What you been up to? What you been looking at?
Something came across my radar this week that I had not heard of, and apparently I've been totally out of the loop on this, is FIRE, F-I-R-E, Financial Independence, Retire Early.
I heard somebody say something about that, but I'm a little bit out of the loop.
Yeah, so now I'm not an expert,
Right.
obviously, but the whole point is it seems to me like it's Dave Ramsey-ish to where you say, okay, well, let's eliminate all of our debt.
Sure.
Let's live below our means, take any extra income. It's essentially look at your budget, cut the fat.
It's like basic intelligence.
Right, but that's not where we are in
Okay.
2019.
Okay.
But let's cut the fat. Let's only pay for our essentials.
Right.
They talk about looking at your three largest expenses, which is, I think, food, housing, transportation.
Right.
They didn't put healthcare in there, which I was kind of surprised about.
Interesting.
Right.
Why do you need that?
Well, if we get Medicare for all, it doesn't matter. Right?
That's true.
If you move to Canada, you're good to go.
That's true.
So they're looking at
we'll get there.
Yeah, that's coming. So those three essentials, they're trying to look at that, say, can we minimize that? Can we minimize all the extra spending?
Right.
And then how do we invest our money, which I think is a good thing.
Sure.
Get a decent rate of return, let our money compound, and then eventually get out of this job that we dislike and start living our life, travel the world, live where you want to live, do what you want to do. So it's FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early.
Meh. I don't know. I mean, I think I don't a whole lot about it, but I mean, I was a certified financial planner when I was 24. Unfortunately, that was over 20 years ago. So
Is that weird to say?
Yeah, that is very weird to say. I'm entering my third decade of employee benefits. Isn't that weird? I'm entering my third decade of having employees.
I just entered my third decade of life.
Right. And I'm entering my third decade of, actually, you just entered your fourth decade. You've been around for a little while. You've been around for like over 30 years. So you're into your fourth.
I see.
It's like, the 1900s where it's complicated.
Well, they say 20th Century Fox, but it was
Right.
the 1900s.
But it was the 1900s. We're like 20th
Got it.
century. That's some far out stuff. And then they went out of business because it was here.
Always threw me off. when I
Right,
was a
exactly.
kid.
I was like, oh, yeah, 20th century. That's like yesterday. Who wants to watch movies about yesterday? That's what Christmas is for when you're watching like Lifetime. And not Lifetime, but the other ones.
Yeah. Home
All
Alone.
right, so
Home
I
Alone
can't
is
even remember where I was.
Home Alone is one of the biggest shows playing this Christmas. I just heard today.
Really?
Yeah.
Like on the big screen?
Well, no, just like Christmas movies. You know, there's like A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
There's all these kind of things. Well, Home Alone is now up there in the rankings.
Okay. I want my kids to see Home Alone.
It's great.
It's give them some ideas.
All right. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So anyhow, I was a CFP, certified financial planner, when I was over 20 years ago at this point. And so the concepts of financial planning are really important. Here's the problem with some of that stuff. A lot of people know this. And anyway, I sold a company and retired when I was 35. Okay. One of the things you're going to find out when you do that, if you actually get a chance to retire early, is that everyone you know is still working. And so you're like, man, this is awesome. Like, and then you go on a walk that day. And you're like, what did you do today? I went on a walk. Like, what did you do? What did you do yesterday? I went to the grocery store.
By yourself.
Right. Went by myself. There's no one around. Everyone's working all day long. And so that sucks. And I mean, it wears on you. And most people, I don't know if you've ever seen this. I think you probably have. Most people that retire without a plan of how they're going to use their time, it's not good for their health. Like a lot of people just die. Like people, because you're used to answering a bell from the minute that you wake up. Wake up, Trent. Hey, buddy. Good morning. Good morning. You're 3 years old. Good morning. It's time to wake up. It's time to have some breakfast. And then that goes on. Go to school. Come on. Got to get in the car. Got to get in the car. Boy, in my damn house, you get in the car. You got to get in the car so we can't be late for school. You have 4 kids in 4 different schools. And so you got this pressure on you. And then it's go to college, go to get a job. And then you're going to work. And then one day you're going to stop. And the thing that, I mean, I was really successful. I was really good. And, was not the only person. There were lots of people that grew our company, but I was fortunate enough to be part of it. And so when you go and you think that company revolves around you to a certain extent, everyone really does. It's ego. And so the day you go home and then you wake up, nobody will notice. Nobody cares. Like the world goes on. And so that's a beautiful thing, and that allows you to breathe and to do some things. But people that want to retire early without a plan, without understanding what they're trying to really accomplish, or, I mean, most people end up in severe depression for the first couple of years after they actually retire. So one of the things that I always talk to people about is understand what you're asking for, and you got to get prepared for it. You can't just walk into totally changing what you've done for 40 something, 50, 60 years and just stop. You're going to stop that. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah. And so I think that some of these people would say, they'd counter and say, yeah, well, I have a plan. But the thing that I was looking at is just your opinion. So you retired early. Did it cost more while you were retired, or did it cost more when you were like working?
It's expensive. Yeah, my circumstances were unique, but it's very expensive. You have this idea of living on a meager lifestyle. And I don't know, my opinion on it, I take it for what it's worth, is that find something that you love to do and do that. And so
For a living.
Right.
Find something that you love to do and do that.
Right.
Find a way to make that
Right.
your livelihood.
Right.
Find a way to...
Correct. And
Because if you love to do it, it's probably your purpose anyways.
yeah, I would think so.
We tend to be drawn towards things we're naturally good
It's not
at.
going to feel like it's work.
Right. Okay.
It's not gonna, I mean, I never feel like it's work.
So if you're doing something that you enjoy doing, that you wake up in the morning, you say, I'm looking forward to doing this, and you get to make money at it, you don't view it as something that you need
Right.
to retire from.
Right.
You don't look at it as I'm counting down the days until I can
Right.
leave this.
And anyone that looks at like the stats on, okay, I get it. You want to go on vacation? Go on vacation. How many vacations you going to go on? I know, not many. I mean, and I know because that's the interesting thing. All these people want to retire, but they never studied people that actually retired. They don't know. And so they want what they don't have. The grass is always greener on the other side. But then you actually do it and you realize that there's a reason these people are hit with severe depression. It's problematic. It's challenging. It changes everything. It changes your personal relationships. Because guess what? Most of the people that people are connected to are related to your kids and related to your work. So your kids grow up and then you retire early without a plan, and then you're sitting at home and no one cares. They're working. They're trying to pay for, and it's wonderful that you were successful. It's good. You let some air out of the balloon, but there's more to it than that. So you got to be very careful about doing that.
I don't think I've ever thought about that. They're connected to your kids and connected to who you work with.
Right.
And your kids are going to leave one day.
Yes, they're gone.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'd not thought of it that way.
And so I've always thought about how do you get to where, I mean, unfortunately, I've been able to do this. How do you work with the people that you love? And if you don't have it, you go create it. Now, that's me. I'm entrepreneurial. That's not everybody, which is fine. There's nothing right or wrong about any of the approaches. You know, maybe your calling is to work for a nonprofit or something. You've got to find something to do, though. And so anyhow, I mean, it's still wonderful. You can, the idea of saving money and retiring early is good, but like, what are these? I see the rates of what people actually save money. And like I told you, I don't know a whole lot about this. What are the assumptions underneath this? Because, like at the end of the prospectus and stuff, you get the thing is, all the people that are talking like this, and all the fine print. What is the fine print of that's leading them to believe that they can actually accomplish this?
Yeah, so I noticed that there are people who achieve this FIRE, this financial independence through retiring early and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say through retiring early, financial independence and retiring early. And what they do is they start making videos talking about it and promoting it.
Okay.
Which means that now they're doing something else. They're
Okay.
not on a beach drinking something fruity out of something fruity.
Right.
They are still working. It's almost like they retired so that they could pursue the thing that they love, which
Okay.
I think is good.
Sure.
And I mean, all of your points are very, very valid, and I agree with you. And because I don't want to come across personally as like hating on it, because it is so much better.
Oh my gosh.
It's so much better than just blowing all of your money, not saving,
Sure.
not investing, not looking into your future, not
Right.
having a plan. I think that what you're trying to do, and why I even brought it up, is just bringing awareness to the fact that it might not be ultimately what you want. There may be a way to get what you want, or just move 2 degrees to the left, and
Right.
you can get kind of what you want.
Or here's an idea. Maybe you do that type of an approach for 5 years and create enough latitude so that you can quit the job you hate. And you can get rid of the boss that's an asshole.
Yeah, that's the
and
thing.
so you don't have to deal with that crap anymore.
You know, working a job you hate, it's
Right.
silly.
That's right.
It's silly because you could die at any moment.
Yeah.
It's really silly. One of the things that concerned me when I looked at it, having the background in investments, being a registered investment advisor, and this is not investment advice. Nothing we are saying has anything to do with giving anyone
Right.
investment advice. But one of the things that concerned me was this thought of the 4% rule. Now, the 4% rule has been really popular, and essentially what it says is you want to have enough in your retirement so that you can
Right.
draw out 4% a year.
A month, right?
No, not a month. Not
4%,
a month.
well, that's terrible.
Some of us shoot for 4% a month.
I'm just kidding.
Other people don't think that's possible.
I'm just kidding.
Right?
All right.
So 4% a year. You
Right.
want to draw out 4% a year, and you want the money to last.
So you got $1 million. You're going to pull out 40 grand a year.
40 grand a year. Now that's
It's going to be taxed.
It depends on exactly. It depends on what type of retirement account you
Sure.
have at what age. But if you're going to retire early, yeah, you're right. It's going to
Yeah.
be retaxed because you haven't made it to 59 and a half.
Correct.
Certainly.
Correct.
Maybe, I don't know, but a lot of these people I see are trying to retire in their 40s. So yeah, you're going to be taxed.
Sure.
And so now it's not 40, let's say it's 30. What's your quality of life? I mean, these plane tickets to these destinations where you want to hang out and do all of your things and finally get to
pricey.
live your life, you're not going to afford that
It's pricey.
with 30 grand net.
Right.
It's not going to happen. But here's the thing. What I believe is that 4% is dangerous in the first place. Because if you get down into what the 4% is based off of, it's based off of historical performance of U.S. markets. Now, U.S. markets have led global markets throughout
Since-
most of the 20th century.
Right. That's what I was about to say. Since 2009. Certainly.
Certainly since 2009. But what was done was they looked at 30-year periods and they said, what is the highest draw-out rate, essentially, each year that you could use and still have the money last 30 years? And they came to about 4%. But the problem is that advice has been given to people who retire for years and years and years,
Yeah.
assuming the retirement age is in your mid-60s.
Right.
Life expectancy is expanding. Life expectancy is increasing. So the point is if you're going to retire young, you're going to have to live on your retirement money a lot longer. And what happens is if you take those same stats and you take it from 30 to 35, now that 4% doesn't work. It actually fails about 15% of the time. If you take it to 40 years,
Right. And it
it's
just
going to
fails
fail
more
like
and more.
30% of the time.
Right,
If you take
yeah.
it to 50 years, so let's say you retire at 40 and you live
Right.
to 90, you've got like a 40-something% chance
Pretty good chance
that
of.
you don't have enough money, and that's only drawing out $40,000 a year with $1 million saved.
Right.
Even if you could save $2 million, if you can save $2 million, then you're still only pulling out $80,000
Right.
a year. Now I say only, but that's household. That's you and your spouse if you're with someone.
I mean, after having done it, I can just tell you it's a whole lot better to, well, I think a lot of it comes down like there's lots of conversations in health, right, about quality versus quantity of life. Like, do you want to live forever or do you want to live for almost ever, but really, really well? You know, and you've got these different trade-offs in life. It's a really good thought process to have, but I think you could flesh it. I mean, if you're talking about something as important as how you're going to spend decades of your life, you can spend a little bit more time thinking about it, you know?
So you'd say, yeah, you're on the right track. You have the right mindset, but use that freedom to pursue something you love.
Yeah. The whole thought process that you're going to go home and play video games, for 99.9% of us, you're going to be very unfulfilled with that. You're going to end up overweight and depressed in 18 months or less. Some people just implode, man. They're not used to it. And so after you do it and it almost kills you, you become acutely aware of, oh my gosh, and this is a real thing, you know, and fortunately for me, you know, and it leads to tons of uncertainty. When I think back about my entire life, some of the hardest years, honestly, were probably the 1 to 3 years after that. After I sold a business for millions of dollars, the 1 to 3 years after that were brutal. Identity crisis. I come out of college, 21 years old. I don't have anything. I didn't have a silver spoon. I mean, the reason I went to a college, it was a really good college because I knew how to play football. And that was it. I wasn't smart. I mean, I was smart, but I wasn't smart enough to get into that college. And I played, and because of that, I was able to get some entrees to go work for John Hancock. And I did that for 3 years. But I worked my tail off knowing that, you know, I just looked at it and I said, well, the people got all these designations, these letters behind their name make more money than people that don't. And so that's what I did. I didn't listen to the damn radio. I was relentless about getting press. I took the whole mentality of playing college football towards business, and I pressed and pressed. And because of that, it led into the next job at employee benefits at Marsh when I was 24. No one gets hired at Marsh when you're 24. And I had this background of calling from insurance side. You call 500 people a week. That's what you do. You call 500 people a week. So I got into the employee benefit side, and they said, well, how are you going to be successful? I said, I'm going to call 500 people a week. They're like, you can't do that. I was like, what do you mean? What are you going to do with you call? That's what you do. And so I said, well, I'll call 100 people a week. They said, if you call 100 people a week, you're going to have more people than you can see. And that's true. If you end up calling 100 people a week in employee benefits, it wasn't complicated. It was a lot of damn work. It was hard. It was stuff that nobody else wanted to do, and I was willing to do. But because of that, I sold a ton. By the time I was 25, I'd sold a ton of employee benefits. I was one of the top people in sales in the country. And people, guess what? People start recruiting you. And so then guess what? I was able to buy a small firm, part of it, and I grew into it and I got really lucky. And then we grew out and sold, boom, millions of dollars. Like by the time you're 30, I don't know, 5 or something like that. It didn't happen on accident. But there's a part of you that when you have that type of momentum, that you feel like, I mean, I got this thing under control. I mean, I got my arms around this, and then, I'm going to knock this thing out too. And I'm going to go figure, no, it doesn't matter, because there's a third of a century of history of you waking up to a bell every day. Come on, buddy, it's time to get up, for all your whole life. And then it just stops.
Yeah.
And no one cares. It doesn't matter how good you are. No one cares.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a controversial statement, obviously, but that's the reason you're in the 1%.
Yeah.
What we're talking about with the FIRE method, that's not designed for the 1%.
Right.
Right. So you're talking right now to people who say, okay, that's not enough for me.
Yeah.
I want to elevate myself beyond that. And I think that's the path you have followed.
Yeah.
And inadvertently during that path, you happen to stumble upon retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And found out this isn't all it's cracked up to be. And that's a direct result of the old adage of, like, you always want what you can't have.
Right.
And so many times when we get what we've
Sure.
longed for so long, we find out this is unfulfilling.
Right.
Like the finish line, like, doesn't hold any sustenance for us.
Right.
It's the race itself. And so what you're describing is making your life the race.
Right.
Saying that I'm in it every single day.
It is something they should be doing. That
Right.
we all should be doing, though.
It's good. They're instilling good habits.
Sure.
But the mindset shouldn't be, I'm instilling these good habits so I can escape one day. The mindset could
Correct.
be, I'm
There you
instilling these good habits so that my race is more enjoyable.
Yeah.
So that my time on this earth is more enjoyable, that I'm a more fulfilled human being.
Right.
And I get to accomplish and give back to people.
Right.
Through serving my purpose, which
Right.
ultimately, inadvertently, makes you wealthy.
Right.
Which is the path that you have pursued and are continuing to pursue,
Right.
even though you could walk away.
But it is great that people are actually thinking about this. But they didn't mention health insurance, which is interesting.
As one of the top 3 expenses.
Oh, okay.
As one of the top 3. Now, they did mention insurance, and I know that you're going to have some things to say about this, just because you talked to me about the results that you're getting in your separate accounts.
Yeah.
From an HSA. One of the things
HSA.
the people of the FIRE community talk about are HSAs, the health savings accounts.
Sure. Yeah.
And they recommend funding an HSA, maxing out your contributions to an HSA.
Right.
For many reasons. I think one of the top reasons are the taxation of the money.
Man.
So you're able to contribute pre-tax dollars
Right.
to an HSA.
Right.
It's able to grow tax-free.
Yep.
And then for qualified medical expenses, you're able to withdraw that money without tax implications.
It's a beautiful thing.
So it's a beautiful thing. But the only requirement, if I'm not mistaken, is that you're enrolled in a high deductible healthcare plan.
Right.
Which
Exactly.
a lot of people are today.
Correct.
And the requirements for a high deductible are pretty low compared to what deductibles I've seen.
Correct.
So a lot of people can take advantage of this.
Yeah, I mean, you can do a Google search on what the HSA requirements are and look at that plan. But I mean, my experience on it, because I appreciate everybody. You need to do this. If you have a chance to take a HSA plan and max fund it. Well, I've been doing this for a while, And so there's something particularly rewarding about taking, and I manage my own investments. And I mean, even if you don't, it doesn't matter. I mean, you're going to take, if you take that money, you can actually invest it. A lot of people don't know that. I use HSA Bank. They've been around for forever. I'm a fan of theirs. And so essentially it's like a checking account, right? So I put the money in. I don't even know what the amount is anymore, $5,000 or $6,000 a year for our family.
I think for a couple, it's $6,900 now.
Okay. All right. So we put the money in. I always max fund it. And what this becomes like a checking account. But the thing that I'm sure there are other people that do it, but I know the HSA Bank does it, that you can attach an Ameritrade account, which
TD Ameritrade.
And so that the money comes off and it comes into an investment account. It's like a brokerage account. And so you want to buy Apple, you want to buy Netflix, you want to buy whatever. And so when you do it and you take, I mean, it's just wonderful. You put the money in and you got a tax deduction. And so you put the money in, you get tax deduction. The money funnels through HSA Bank. It goes over into this brokerage account. And then you buy stock. And then that stock goes up and you make $1,000. And your kid has $1,000 medical bill. It feels really good to just go, that's fine. I just sell some of that stock. I did this week. I'll just sell some and pay that medical bill. It's nice because you just pay that stock. The money flows right back through that HSA to the account. And you have a debit card and but it's huge because people, like anyone who's actually looking at their budget and start looking at the amount of money they spend on things that are reimbursable. I think it's section, golly, this is a nerdy moment, 213D of the Internal Revenue Code that talks about healthcare expenses. Those are things that are reimbursable under a flexible spending account as well as a health savings account. It's a bunch of stuff. It's stuff that's related to your health or your wife's health or your kid's health or your mama's health, or like there's certain people inside your little family unit that you can pay for out of that. It's a big deal.
Mm. Yeah, one of the things I was looking at this week was the fact that most people use it as a savings account, right? And so they never actually tie it to a brokerage account and make any types of investments.
Right.
But then you're not taking advantage of the fact that all of your investment gains are tax deferred.
Oh, man.
Which is huge because you have
you gotta get
compounded rate of
beyond that.
return. And the other thing that's a huge deal, which I was thinking about this week, I never knew this until this week. Mm-hmm. It's essentially like an HSA hack. And what it is placing your money in an HSA, investing the money. Some people buy and hold, right? They'll buy like an ETF, stocks like you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a high dividend yielding REIT of some sort if they want to have exposure to real estate. But when you read the fine print in the HSA, you're allowed to be reimbursed for medical expenses years and years and years and years down the road. It's not just this year.
Oh, sure.
So the hack is keeping track of your medical records and paying for your medical bills out of your own pocket and never touching the HSA money unless it's absolutely necessary.
Well, I was going to say something about that especially when you're first starting. You want to put the money in. Don't use that money.
Right.
Don't use that money. That's money that can grow, and so that the earnings on that money pay all of your medical expenses. It's crazy good.
Yeah. So the hack is essentially letting it grow.
Yeah.
Tax deferred. And later on, if you need the money, you can still turn in the medical bill that you have scanned and put on a drive or in the cloud. You can get your money back.
I think that you can also pay for long-term care expenses for your parents.
Now that is really important.
I'm pretty sure that you can do that.
That is really important.
Excuse me.
But a staggering amount of people who have an HSA are not tying it to a brokerage account and investing that money, and so therefore they're not taking advantage of one of the biggest perks of an HSA.
You got to do that.
Because how many people are on a high deductible health care plan at this point?
A bunch.
A lot.
A bunch. And there's a lot of times that there's even an option. When you start looking at an option, like if you work for a big employer and there's two different options. You have a PPO plan that has a low deductible and you have this high deductible plan. But then when you start thinking about these things, if you actually are smart enough to actually do it, and great, you probably ought to take that one, even if this one's really attractive because of an employee contribution strategy or deductible or whatever. Maybe you even take that one.
I don't know enough about this to even talk about it intelligently, but I read about some insurance companies that allow you to enroll in a high deductible health plan And if you use one of their preferred partners to open up like an HSA, they will actually contribute to the HSA as well.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like a premium pass-through, I think is the name for it.
Okay.
So they're actually contributing part of your premium into the HSA.
Yeah, you want, I don't know that term of it,
Yeah.
but you want to, anytime someone's willing. See, the great thing about it, there's 3 accounts in employee benefits. There's an FSA, an HRA, and an HSA. They're all 3 different. And there's no sense in going through all 3 of them, but they allow different tax advantage. But the one thing to know is that the HSA, from a personal perspective, is the one you own. That's your checking account. That's your money.
Right.
And so if they're willing to put money in your checking account, you need to take that money.
Exactly.
Whatever
it's
you
like
need to do.
It's like the 401k match.
Right.
You want to max that out
Right.
because someone else is contributing. That's your money anyway.
I have a really important topic. Westbrook IPA, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. Incredible.
It's really good.
It's incredible. All right, so I lived on Daniel Island, and you live in Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived on Daniel Island. I passed this place for forever, driving from Daniel Island on into town. And
Get that sound bite.
did I get it? I did.
Oh, yeah, we need to do better about that.
I know. I'll work on that.
Make sure. Yes.
But I always looked off to the right, and I was like, Westbrook? Well, I don't know. Westbrook? I never heard of it. Then I move away and come out. They're one of the best breweries around. It's incredible. Me and my wife go to different places and drink beer a lot, pretty much around the country. And so, we've been out to a lot. We've been Ballast Point. We've been to lots of places.
You do that on $40,000 a year?
A month, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So,
We got
no, not 40 grand a month. It doesn't cost that much. People get in. They're all stuck on this. Well, we need to be worth $15 million. You don't need to be worth $15 million. You need to have no debt and have a $500,000 a year income. Your lifestyle will be better. There's actually studies on this. I'm sure you've probably seen this, right? And so that there's diminishing returns. I'm an economist.
After $70,000 a year.
Is it after 70?
$70,000 a year.
See, I don't know about that.
Where they're saying,
Well, maybe
like
if you look at they're looking at a global population.
Well, they're looking at the U.S. and they're saying on average $70,000 a year because your essential needs are met, that your happiness doesn't increase.
I'm going to tell you, it's really nice to not. I mean, I'm just going to say it. It's really nice to not have to cut your own grass if you don't want to. If you want to, there's a lawnmower out there. Just go cut your grass. Get your groove on. Cut your grass, or not clean your house. But it's damn nice to be able to go. You know what? Instead, I think I'm going to go to my kids' play. I think I'm going to go to my daughter's science fair project. I'm going to help her with that project, or I'm going to grab my wife's hand. I'm going to hold it. And I'm going to take a walk around the block rather than cleaning my house. And guess what? It's good for that person too. They need a job. They need to clean a house. I promise you that the people because I've got lots of people that help our family. They're not second-class citizens. They are loved. They're awesome. We love them. We value them. They're incredible, and we just have different roles. It doesn't make me better or anything else, but man, golly, I tell you, life can be really incredible. Once you get to a certain point when you don't have to do some of those basic things, it kind of takes a little air out of the balloon.
Let me ask you a question. For some people who are listening and you say, oh, well, $500,000 a year, that's what you need to get. And they're just like, yeah, buddy, okay, $500,000 a year. Why don't you show me how to get it? Are we going to create content that shows people how they can make a $500,000 a year income?
Yes and no, right? I can give you a short version. You're going to work your ass off.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really want it, you either already have it or you will have it. Now, I'm not saying that that's like, we're not talking about Bill Gates. We're not talking about all that. And you don't have to have that to have a happy life. I know a lot of people that have nothing. They're happier than I am. I mean, where I go to church, Catholic, I mean, it's in the hood in Greenville, South Carolina. And there's a lot of people there. They're happier than me. And so money doesn't buy you happiness. It's about, but if we're talking about what we want to achieve, I mean, that's like a number for me to where I can go, if you don't have any debt, you're making that level of money, you can do literally, you don't need something outlandish beyond that. But the reality is that's still way on out there. And so, but yeah, I mean, there's no reason, in my opinion, anybody that wants to make $200,000 to $500,000 a year can't. There's only one reason: you're not willing to do the work. Now you have to also understand you are going to work your ass off to do it. No one is going to give it to you.
Well,
there are certain ways to go about doing it.
Well, there are people,
but it's not going to happen on accident.
There are people who work 80 hours a week. They're willing to work.
Sure.
They are willing to work.
Sure.
And they still can't seem to rise above. So,
Correct.
So that comes down to, that's something else. It's got to be something else, right?
They're not doing the right things.
They're not doing the right things.
They don't know.
So there we go. So are we going to create content to help people understand what the right things to do are, if you're willing to put the work in?
Sure. I mean, there's some simple, talk about hacks earlier. There's some simple hacks that you can do. Turn the radio off. Y'all, I'm not joking. What I did, I honestly believe everyone can do. Now, my life circumstances and everybody else's are different, right? I had a childhood that was different than a lot of people. I don't know many people whose dad was building business plans alongside of them, like letting them watch when they were 7 or 8 years old. I was for a decade. I mean, I saw all that. And so, yeah, I mean, that has an impact, but it's not critical. I mean, if you're willing to do the work, I mean, to me, the fundamental stuff is turn the radio off. I mean, the thing I tell my kids, you got to turn the radio off. What am I going to listen to? You're going to listen to stuff that actually feeds your brain. Brian Tracy, all-time favorite. But you've got so many people that like teach you about success. There's so much classical crap out there, and it's free. Hell, it's on YouTube. All you have to be willing to do is go do it. Just turn it on and listen to it.
Did you know Brian Tracy started a vlog?
No, I didn't.
I found this
and
out
he's
last
old
week.
now, man.
Oh, that dude is.
He's killer.
He can talk in his everyday life just like his audiobooks.
I know.
You're like, wait a minute. That's not an audiobook voice.
Every day, you need to get up and go, I can do this. Today is going to be a great day. And I know. The reason I know is I never listen to the radio. All right, so people want 7 quick ways. You want another beer?
Yeah, give me one.
River Rat. Here you go. People
Give me
want
another one. I tried that one. Give me another one. Not an IPA, though.
Well, that's all we have is an IPA.
Oh, give me that River Rat then. You either love it or hate it, right?
I know, right? So
See if I
people
can get
want.
this sound.
Oh, nice. All right, so people want 7 quick ways to clean up your life by tomorrow morning. All right, that's not. It's fun to read.
It's like instant biceps.
Right.
Instant
Exactly.
abs.
It's like cocaine. It's a drug. Right? It's not reality.
And
Makes you feel a little bit better for now. Then you're going to feel terrible because you realize, no, that's not reality. This is just not reality.
It's like for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Right. There's a consequence.
Sure. But here's the great thing. I mean, honestly, with success material, good grief, you can, honest to God, though, see an instant benefit. The change in your relationships, the change in the way that you view the world, the change in the way that you view yourself, your level of energy, your level of activity. I mean, you know me. But activity is my jam. Like you have got to build a pace about yourself to get crap done. I mean, I remember that. I even had it even when I was in college or in high school too. You're playing football, you're on a football field, and they go, defensive group, far corner on the dummies. I bet you were not going to beat me there, ever. I don't care who you were. I don't care if you ran a 4.40. I would tackle you. You were not beating me there. And because it was an overall attitude of, that's what I'm going to do. I'm there to work. And I just kind of took that on. That was my thing. And now it got a little weird at certain points when I was in a suit after I'd already graduated, and I realized I pulled up to the mall, and it was hot as hell, and I was parked in the back of the parking lot, and I realized I'm in a suit jogging to the entrance. Like it's time to calm it down a little bit. Like I was sweating profusely.
Yes.
Big defensive lineman. And but anyhow, like building the pace about there's certain habits and things that you can build that will change your life. And people always go like well, let me finish that. Like Brian Tracy. There's so many of them. But just go consume that material. And people are like, the big thing is people bitch and moan about, and I've had employees for 2 decades, now going into my 3rd decade. How many of them actually do it? I have said it over and over. You think that what I've done is so special. It's not special. It's like if you want to be a doctor, you got to go to medical school. But people want to make all this money. They don't want to do any work. They're just damn lazy. And so you have to do the work. And so, but the beautiful thing is the work is actually going to change you so that you're a different human being than you are currently.
Right.
And so that you're listening, you're consuming. If you go eat Cheetos and donuts all day long, you're going to look like a Cheeto and a donut. But if you're eating something different, it's no different than the things you're taking into your brain. It's way more important than stuff you take into your brain. And it's just, obviously I'm passionate about it. It's very important. And very few people actually do it. Even when they stare face to face with evidence of people that will say the same things that are successful. But they don't want that. They want 6 ways to have an 8-pack of abs by tomorrow afternoon. They want the fast, easy way. There is no fast, easy way. I mean, when I was working with John Hancock, my best friends, he said, Combs, there's this thing called a CFP. I said, what now? He said, a CFP. I was like, what is that? A Certified Financial Planner. I was like, was that those letters out? I mean, I didn't know anything. I knew nothing. He said, yes, it's like it's a designation. And you can take, these people make $100,000 a year. I was like, oh my God, you can't spend $100,000 a year. I was 21 years old. Like, you can't spend how do you spend $100,000 a year? It's a ton of money. I never had that kind of money. I didn't grow up like that. And so I said, well, I'm going to get that. We have to find out. Well, I think at that time you needed 5 years of experience. That's why I can't wait 5 years. Right. So what am I going to do? Well, I looked it up, and it comes to find out that if you had 2 other designations, you didn't have to wait 5 years. If you had a CLU, Certified Life Underwriter, and a CHFC, Chartered Financial Consultant, I want to say it was like either 9 or 13 exams or something, you could sit for the CFP, even though you didn't have 5 years experience. So that's what I'm going to do. And so I stopped listening to radio. All I would listen to is those tapes and Brian Tracy and all this. And you'd see me maybe a little dangerous. I'd be driving down the road and sitting at the stoplight, flipping these cards. I was an animal. I just consumed it. And I would take a test a month almost every 6 weeks, 30 to 40 hour tests. Some people were like, yeah, I did my first CLU this year. I was like, well, I did 8. You did 8? Yeah, I did 8 this year. And so then I did the CHFC. So I was 23 years old and hit a CLU and CHFC. Not because I'm smart, because I was willing to work.
That's right. So that's the thing that keeps resonating, the thing that you keep saying over and over. Tons of people are consuming this information.
Right.
Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, they've sold millions of audiobooks.
Gosh, right.
Tony Robbins. But the point that made the difference is that you took action on it.
Right.
You're describing taking action. You're saying naturally we're all consumers.
Right.
Right. So you're saying you consumed the information.
Right.
But then you took massive action with the information. I think that's what's lacking. What's lacking is this entitled mentality of, I should have this, I deserve this, this is not fair.
Right.
And we have an entire culture of people who they just refuse to take action.
Right.
But the opportunity is so abundant with the internet, with social media, with all these things that exist.
Right.
And the people who take massive action get massive results.
Right.
And
Sorry, I got us off topic.
Yeah, it's fine. So here's the thing. I talked to you earlier today about AD&D. We'll save it for next week. We'll talk about accidental death, dismemberment.
Yeah.
I had a couple of questions on that. We'll skip it.
It's pretty quick. Accidental death and dismemberment basically is almost like an attachment to a life insurance policy. And so a lot of people, but it's interesting because it's cheap. All right, so it pays out if you're accidentally you die in like a car accident or a plane or something like that, or if you have some type of dismemberment. And they'll have this big schedule, from what I remember, it's on life insurance a long time ago, that they'll say, well, if you lose a pinky, you get like $941, but you lose your left thumb, that's like $2,500. But if you lose your right thumb, most people are right-handed, that's more expensive. That's like you're going to get $5,000. So you got all these different, like you're totally dismembered because of something that happens, or you just die like in a car accident. So it's important. It's helpful because, I mean, if something happens from from a dismemberment standpoint, it may create disability. Disability is another conversation. But it's typically attached to like a life insurance policy. It's really important, though, like you got to have life insurance. I'm a big fan of term life insurance because of we talked about FIRE and we talked about other things you're doing in terms of savings and what have you. Put the money there rather than investing, quote unquote, in a life insurance policy. If you're an astute investor and you got a lot of money and there's other reasons for you to do it, great. But for most people are just trying to make it. They've got kids. They have massive responsibilities when they're young. You need a lot of life insurance. How are you going to buy that? You're going to buy term. If you have the discipline to actually save the rest of the money, which you need to build that discipline.
So if you need both policies. So AD&D,
yeah,
let's just say you have an accidental
add-on,
death.
Essentially. Yeah.
Right. So you need a life insurance policy as well.
Right. Now, most people, if you have an employer, you have a group life insurance policy that has AD&D attached to it. And so you have certain benefits, like you might have $100,000. But AD&D says, okay, well, if you die in a car accident, you're actually going to get $200,000. And so it doubles the benefit. And if you lose a pinky or you lose you're dismembered in your body, you're going to get certain payouts to kind of help with that. That's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
It's sort of, I just remember like the rate, the insurance rate. Because when I look at it and I go, well, how important is it? I go, well, how much premium are they paying? And the premium for the AD&D portion versus the life insurance was like a tenth or less of the actual life insurance.
So it's cheap.
Super cheap,
So,
which is why people buy it.
So we're in open enrollment right now this time of year, and people have questions about AD&D. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing that I ran across in asking people and looking online. A lot of people have life insurance policies, and it doesn't help them if they have dismemberment.
Right.
They're not dead.
Right.
And a lot of people have AD&D, and their death, they don't have life insurance. So in other words, having one policy without the other isn't a very good idea.
Yeah, I mean, you really need life insurance.
Well, okay, yeah, exactly. You
That's
need life insurance.
That's
the priority.
Correct.
We're all going to die.
Right. If you want to do that, I mean,
Les Brown says no one's making it out of here alive.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Right. So I mean, you need both. You need both. Now I understand because you're trying to save money and all the rest. That's not the area to save money. You get a second job. Like you got to have life insurance. Your kids. Now, I have a tragic story that I can't get into it because I'd be too emotional about it because it was one of my closest friends that died, and there was a life insurance issue, and you need life insurance when you have kids, and you just can't mess around with that. It's nothing to joke around with.
Yeah. So on the topic of insurance, you said something last week that spurred me to do some research. We were talking about Medicare for all. We were talking about Elizabeth Warren, and you kept making this comment about, well, what are we already spending?
Right. What's the cheaper?
What are we already spending?
Yeah.
So if anyone didn't see the last video, we were talking about a $52
$1 million. It was
yeah. You kept saying million.
Was million. It's too many beers, I think.
Trillion.
So
in seconds, we're going back 30,000 years.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a $52 trillion healthcare plan. And you kept saying, well, what are we already spending? What are we already spending? So I have the numbers. And so what I wanted to look at it is say, look, let's look at it, not from a partisan stance.
Sure,
I don't care if you're progressive or conservative. Let's look at arithmetic. Mm-hmm. Right? Let's look at the math behind it. And so I came up with a few figures. Bernie Sanders' plan was expected to cost $32 trillion.
Sure.
Elizabeth Warren comes out and makes headlines, $52 trillion. I had a couple of friends tell me, like, have you seen Elizabeth Warren's healthcare plans? $52 trillion.
Right.
You made the point, rightfully so, that's over 10 years. So if it's a $52 trillion plan, we're talking $5.2 trillion a year. I'm not making light of that number. That's incomprehensible. Bernie Sanders' plan was $3.2 trillion a year.
Right.
So I looked at what we're actually spending on healthcare in this country right now, and it's $3.7 trillion per year.
No.
Right?
No. It's cheaper?
Well, no, it's not. It's not. So here's the math. $3.7 trillion. But the inflationary rate for medical costs is 5 to 6%. Let's call it 5.5%. Okay. So if you take $3.7 trillion and you look over the next 10 years, that's obviously $37 trillion.
Okay.
But if you apply the fact that premiums are going up, expenses are going up, cost for medical care is going up, if you take 3.7 and you run it at 5.5 increase per year, you're going to end up with $48 trillion with things sitting exactly as they are today.
Now, here's a question though, because I mean, I haven't looked at the numbers. You know better than me, but you can't. That's going to happen to the other side too. If it's currently 3.7 trillion, it's not going to stay at 3.7. It's going up over the next 10 years.
My understanding is that the other side accounted for that in their projections. So what happened was, you've got a right wing, left wing type of thing.
Right, right.
So you have to know.
And I can fudge. I mean, I'm a CFA. I've done math before. I have a calculator. You can fudge a number here or there, and like, it's what one of the senators said a long time ago. He's like, $1 billion here and $1 billion there, and before long we're talking about real money. Like it's all BS money anyway. Don't even get me go there. It's just another number on a screen. Is it even real?
It's conservative outlets that are reporting on the $52 trillion number. So
Is
you know that
even
they
real?
took the highest number that they could stand behind. Maybe they can't even stand behind it. Right? I don't even know if they can stand behind it. But they took the largest number. So in that case, they would have to, take inflation into account.
All right, let me just back off, okay? All right, let's just. All right, your parents, are they Medicare yet?
Dad's in Medicare.
Okay.
And mom is on Obamacare.
All right. What does your dad say about Medicare? Has he said anything?
He says great.
Right.
It's great.
All right. Now, I'm a benefits guy. All right. I'm an employee benefits guy. All right. I'm not a, hey, here's a great idea. I got a great idea. Let's put everybody in employee benefits out of business. That's not me. This is just kind of laying that argument aside and going, all right, have you ever heard about anyone that has Medicare? It's just like, man, I cannot get this bill paid. I just don't understand what my benefits are. These are old people.
Doesn't happen in my world.
Yeah, it doesn't happen in my world either. And my wife is in the healthcare field. It doesn't happen in her world because she's dealing with it constantly. And so I'm not making an argument for it. I'm making an argument that if there's only one way of doing things, that makes it more simplistic. And so we have to understand, we have to agree that
affects administrative costs.
Correct.
If there's one way.
Correct. Now, it's more complicated than that because when you look at $1 that's spent on healthcare, you have pieces that are going to administration. You have pieces that are going to other consulting, and when you look at employers, insurance, and the stuff, the employee benefits we do, you have pieces that are going there, and then you ultimately have claims. Now, the claims piece is the pieces employee benefit people that we often we don't think a whole lot about, but it's the vast majority of the pie, right? It's the overwhelming 70 to 80%. We can argue about loss ratios and all the rest another day about the money that ends up going to the providers. Well, the providers are the ones that, they have to make a living too. Now, this is ironically, I haven't thought about a whole lot about this, but I wonder if a lot of this decision doesn't end up coming back to the same conversation also about college loans. Because you think about the providers. These providers, these doctors, went on the assumption that they could make a lot of money, and they went and racked up hundreds of thousands of dollars of student debt. And so you've got them, they have the student debt level, and because of that, they have to make a certain salary, which because of that salary, a hospital or a doctor have to charge a certain amount of money, which means we have to pay a certain rate because we're paying back that student loan. Why? Because our society, we value having doctors. It's a really good thing.
Yeah.
So it's a great thing to be able to go to.
I'm going to bring up a couple things. I'm agnostic, right? I just want what's good for the people.
Right.
Okay. So I don't care about the political parties and things like that. But when I look into this, what it seems to be is a transfer of saying, okay, the average American citizen is paying premiums, they're paying deductibles, they're paying co-pays, right? So the point is that money is leaving their bank account.
Right.
Now, under Medicare for All, money would still leave their bank account in the form of taxation.
Sure.
But what some people say is that is big government, and we're totally against big government.
Sure.
But what about big corporation? What about your money being taken out of your bank account from another person?
Thought about that way.
And so the whole point is that your money's coming out for medical expenses.
Right.
All the projections. Now, I do believe there's corruption in government, so don't
Oh
get me
my
wrong
God.
here.
Yeah, I'm about to go there.
But all of the projections are showing that the money that's coming out for you in the form of taxation, unless you're in the 1%, is less than what you're currently paying in premiums, copays, and deductibles. All of these healthcare plans and healthcare costs that you're complaining about will be taken care of entirely. Not to
Right.
mention everyone who's not covered by insurance will be covered by insurance. So what this leads to is the fact of imagine it like a funnel to where you have deductibles, co-pays, out-of-pocket expenses.
Right.
That funnels in, and at the bottom comes taxes.
Right.
Now, everyone's paying this in the form of taxes
Right.
now, but people have these talking points and they say, we don't want this, we don't want this. But at the end of the year, the average citizen would have more money
Correct.
than they otherwise would. So it's better for them.
Yeah, it's like there's going to be no tax. Yes, there are going to be tax
there
increases.
will.
Of course, because there is currently an amount of money being, like you're talking about, that's being paid for employee contributions in a group plan, and then under that
By
model,
employers.
right, and that same money would end up going to pay some. Of course, there
Exactly.
is. Now, with all that said, the government has a terrible history at managing basically everything,
Mm-hmm.
and so I don't trust them
Yeah.
at all to manage, especially. And so it's a hard conversation. Now, no one can tell me, okay, this, you'll have, like a lot of times when you're a benefit consultant, you'll have multiple groups, different locations, and you go, well, let's consolidate all this, pull this together. Why would we pull this together? Well, because it's so much cheaper to do it 10 different locations. Let's have 10 different plans at 10 different locations. Hell, we ain't saying that. No one's saying that. They're going, no, let's consolidate all this with one administrator. Why? Because it's cheaper. It's easy to understand. It's the same thing on a massive scale. There's a big difference. It puts everybody out of business.
Well, here's the thing. Here's something else to build on that I was thinking through. The number one thing that I like about the Medicare for All idea right now is that if it was government run, because it's a public option, the amount of transparency there is so much more than what we have now,
Oh,
because we
man.
have zero transparency. Now,
Yeah.
you've talked about this, and I don't want to get on a tangent with it, but the whole point is everyone is demonizing the health insurance companies. But the actual providers themselves, the actual hospitals, are able to charge literally whatever they want for whatever procedure they want without anything justifying what they're charging. And so I read a book by a physician from Johns Hopkins who showed the differences in cost for the same exact procedure across the
Right.
United States. And so at one place, a heart procedure would cost $50,000. The exact same procedure, exactly the same,
Right.
would cost $500,000
Sure.
at somewhere else in the country.
Yep.
So that's 10 times with no accountability.
Sure.
And when asked, hey, can you justify why you're charging 10 times this other hospital, there is no justification for it. And so what we're looking at with Medicare for All is saying, okay, we're going to charge 110% of Medicare. And
Right.
so the point is that there's accountability with the pricing of these procedures. But what you're going to see, what everyone is going to see, is massive pushback from providers. Because think about that. To your point, they got a certain education, they need a certain amount of
Sure.
income, and so you have this provider that's able
Right.
to.
So they want to retire early, too.
They want to retire early
They're
too.
doctors.
Exactly. And they have a certain lifestyle to maintain.
Sure.
So you're going to see a massive pushback from physicians saying that
There's
Medicare
another
for All-
option. I think that there's another option that a lot of people don't talk about. Pricing transparency. And so now everyone talks about, well, pricing now, and I'm going to tell you, this conversation right here is not good for me to even have. This is not good for my professional career, but it is the reality of what's important. Keep going. All right, sorry. All right, so I'm going to talk about, so that you can cut that. I'm going to talk about this. This is not good for me to talk about, but there is another alternative to doing Medicare for All. And I personally believe that there's a reason. Now, I'm not saying I'm right, but I do have an educated opinion on it, right? I've got 20 plus years in the industry. I've made a lot of money in this industry. It's the only thing I've ever known. It's the only thing I've ever really done and particularly studied. So I've often said that we need pricing transparency. It's very easy to talk about that. And people, yeah, we need pricing transparency. We have major problems with that. You have what's called the BUCAs, right? And so, and this is why this is not particularly good for me, right? And so, but it's still the truth. You've got large organizations, the Blue Crosses, the large health insurance carriers around the country that a long time ago, 50 years ago, however long, it's 70 years ago, whenever they started, they went into doctors' offices and they were able to pull together networks of people and push health care to different doctors. And because they were delivering volume to that doctor, they got a discount, no different than Costco does. That made sense then. I'm not so sure it makes sense now. And so I'm a proponent of there actually is a way, I think, to solve it. And maybe because there's wonderful things about the way that the health insurance system is right now. You have people that are entrepreneurial that are digging into stuff that Medicare is never going to find out. There are people that are doing stuff. I mean, of course, I own a company, you own a company that does stuff in this industry that is able to really help self-insured plans and really dig in, which is exactly what Medicare would be, right? Self-funded by all of us.
Looking at individual claims.
Looking at all kinds of stuff.
So seeing like, okay, in that example of the heart surgery, saying this provider charged X for this procedure. The exact same procedure with the exact same procedure code was 2 times X at this facility.
Right.
50 miles down the road.
Right. Now, so that's just basic pricing. Where the real value comes in is not in the pricing. To me, I say make Medicare a standard. Medicare is 100% of Medicare, obviously. But instead of that, let's just go, well, what kind of provider do you want to be? You're an entrepreneur. What do you want to charge? I want to charge 120% of Medicare. I want to charge 150% of Medicare. I want to charge 200% of Medicare. I can imagine a scenario in which every provider just chose, what is your pricing? We know what Medicare is. What percentage of Medicare are you? We're 160% of Medicare. Great. That's perfect. Now, as a patient, you can actually understand what it is. And so we take that off the table because what you're talking about is outcomes. Outcomes is totally, it has nothing to do. I've seen there's a group, we're in Greenville, South Carolina. There's a group, Quantros. Great friends, become really great friends. They're a wonderful organization that has pulled together, and we partner with them. They pulled together tons of information about outcomes as well, like the efficiency of a provider. Because there's a lot of times that people, I was just with them this week, yesterday, we were talking about how a lot of people will think that the lowest cost provider is the best, and it's not true. And so they have mined this data, and they have the elite data standard in the country right now of where the best outcomes come. And you can look at local hospitals. I won't mention by name, but you can look at the local hospitals, and I saw it. And there are some doctors that are in the toilet and some that are 99.9%. Now, which one do you want to go to? Who has more exposures, who does more surgeries? So there's data there. There's lots of stuff there. That has nothing to do with price.
So you're saying rather than have this set standard of like, say, 110% of Medicare, what you're saying is
let them be entrepreneurial.
You can look at the hospital and say, okay, this is 200%, and at the same time, this provider has a 5-star rating.
Correct.
And the beds are more comfortable.
Correct.
And the staff is better, and I enjoy this facility a lot more. So I'm willing to pay 200% of Medicare for the level of service.
You have an Amazon app?
I do.
Right. It's got stars. We know how to buy stuff.
I buy everything in this room was bought based on a review.
Correct.
Not
correct.
Looking at the price and going, I'm willing to pay a little bit more.
Right.
Or sometimes you find it for a cheaper price and a higher review.
All right. So let me give you a scenario. You're my doctor.
Yeah.
And I meet you and I go, Trent's great. I know it's that we're having some medical procedures here. He's going to do my shoulder surgery, but I trust him. I think he's a good dude. I don't know damn thing about you. I don't know where you went to school. I don't know. You might suck. You might be really nice. But, that's the whole Malcolm Gladwell thing, right? Talking to strangers. We don't know crap about anybody is the summary of the book. Sorry to spoil it. We don't know anything about anybody. And so, that's what you get to. And so, but here's the whole thing. We have public data. We have public data that's going to say, well, Trent actually sucks at shoulders. These people never get any better. And occasionally they die. I might think you're a great person, but not that great. I'm not willing to do that. But the whole thing is people aren't stupid. They don't have the information. So why don't they have the information? Because it's constantly blocked in this super dynamic, very complicated conversation that actually has the ability to be segmented. If you take the pricing piece off the table, I really think that it could benefit from saying, just put out public pricing, but we're just going to do a percentage of Medicare. What are you? Now, the reason that's not going to happen is because the BUCAs, because of the large insurance carriers, the large, you know who they are. I don't have to mention their names. They don't want that to happen. That's their advantage. Imagine a day in which the large insurance carriers compete on their ability to answer your telephone calls and service you from a customer service standpoint. That's not going to be a good day. That's the reason that they can't do it. And that is the pull. So it becomes this huge fight from a political standpoint that I think that you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to chip away at to where you get to a point that's reasonable and feasible, or you're going to go all the way. You're going to go Medicare for all the way. It's just going to be one or the other.
Yeah.
The question is whether or not that our politicians and everything, we can gauge, like SIA, Self-Insurance Institute of America, is here in our town, which is interesting. And so they're doing a lot to help with that, to get to something that's a little bit more realistic. The bottom line is people need to be able to understand what they're paying for stuff. That's not unreasonable.
That's not crazy.
That's not crazy. We're not talking about crazy.
You're just looking for price transparency.
Right. That's
in
it.
every other market.
But why the hell do they fight it so bad? Because they can't do it. Because they don't want to do it. It's a problem.